I mean, you're going to tell a story about a wrestler that had a marriage that didn't work out. I mean, that's that's kind of, I'm not going to say it's par for the course, but it happens so much.
50-50 in real life too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
you know what
becomes
I mean.
cliche. I mean, he had a lot of automobile accidents, and I don't feel like he had many. He had ups and downs like any other normal person in the world. He just happens to be Harley Race, and he's double tough. So I don't know. I think sometimes the dark side moniker, they're reaching for something there when you don't. There's not so much dark. You look at the dark side of the Road Warriors. Hawk had some things go on with him, and he had a story, past with substances and things. But I don't think Animal was still alive when they filmed that. So when you
Yep.
go into it, sure he could talk about Hawk, but he himself, I don't, didn't have any real tragedies in his personal life, or you could probably do one on Dick Slater, which would seem more like a dark side to me from the stories I've heard. I don't know
Right.
anything firsthand, but yes, firsthand from Harley, I don't know. It's interesting, and of course I'll view, but the man still holds high regard in my heart, of course, for the things he's done for me. My wife as well. My wife trained with him as well. She's younger than myself by 9 years, so she went there and was trained when he was still involved with doing more of that. And he didn't always hop up in the ring, but from ringside, he obviously, you're talking about an 8-time NWA heavyweight champion that could tell you what looks right, what looks wrong,
Yep.
when to do this, when to do that. Those, like, she'll still tell me stories. I look at her and I'm gonna go, "Why have you never told me that?" She's like, "I don't know, it just never popped in my head." Because we
Yep.
have great stories that line up, but we do Harley at different times. Just in his later, it just the way he gets when he gets older and more surly. I used to ask Terry Taylor all the time at the Performance Center. I'm like, "You knew a version of Harley that I didn't. I knew a guy I saw day in, day out. Of course, the mad respect I had for the man, but you knew a guy that walked in to that locker room and people just got quiet. You didn't want to say the wrong thing, piss him off, rub him the wrong way. Like you knew that guy that carried the pistol, that was protecting himself in his Halliburton, and carried that 10 pounds of gold and just sit down and light up a smoke and not care who's around. Just fascinating to hear stuff about the Harley from back then to the one I know.
And I interviewed Flair not that long ago, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and
Yeah,
he was telling me like Harley race stories. He basically was saying, and this is Flair, everyone considers him the GOAT. He was basically saying Harley race is a god. If there was no Harley race, there's no Flair. And then he was going on telling awesome stories. I'm like, oh, would that really be Dark Side of the Ring? These awesome bar stories of him beating two guys up at once. He said he
yeah.
punched one guy this way, elbowed him, and then when he came back, he headbutted him with the back of his head. I was like that's not like Dark Side. I mean, those are great stories, but it's also Flair is saying that about Harley. You know what I mean? Like Flair's pumping him up like he's like, oh, Harley's way better than I was, like, which is crazy to say.
Sure. Oh, indeed. Well, yeah. I mean, mad props to always to anyone that puts Harley in that. I mean, but when you think about it, when you watch a lot of the Flair, I've been watching a lot of Flair Harley lately. Different matches, different
Mm.
time frames, and like there's a couple out there specifically that have popped up. It always sparks your memory when you see clips on Instagram, and it was one with Harley and Flair from Japan, and they just start off with the high spot. But then their styles, when you look at, Harley had the knee drop, Flair had a knee drop, his version. They do the off the top rope bump,
Yep.
the big one. But yeah, for Flair, of course, for Flair to put him over that way. Steamboat, many a time I've asked him about he and Harley, and he's like, Harley always liked me. He always took me to Japan when he went. He always took me to Japan when he went.
When I look at Harley too, and somebody online, I remember I mentioned it, people were like, oh, he was so out of his prime at this point, was the Hogan feud in the late 80s when he had
Oh,
all
gosh.
those matches with Hogan. I was like, he was, you could say later on in his career, he was not out
Right.
of his prime. Those matches are awesome. Those Texas Death matches, I mean, they're awesome.
Oh, hell yeah! Those are the well. Wouldn't that lead up to the one where he hurt his he he went through the table and hurt himself with the band
Yes.
wrapped around and smacked him. But
Yep.
holy hell, those are great. Those are phenomenal brawls. Like that's great Hogan stuff. I mean, that's you can say exactly later on, but I would dare say not exactly his prime. I mean, look at him moving all over the place. Even when he works the Ultimate Warrior, watch when he works that guy. That's the epitome of him taking care of himself and bumping all over
Yep.
for this guy. That he certainly doesn't want him get. He doesn't want to get picked up by this guy and dropped in the wrong way. So he's just taking care of himself, but still making that guy such a star. Like, I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, he knew his position and his role, and to be so respected as he was, to walk in there and humbly do that, because he told me, it's iconic now, especially now that it's in the movie where he wore the red, white, and blue robe, and they had the boots, the red, white, blue boots that they remade. He
Yep.
told me that those boots, he told me that he threw those boots out after he lost the Flair. He said he threw them in the garbage. Is what he told me. And I looked at him like, "You really did?" He's like, "Yep." He's like, "I
Wow.
threw him in the trash." He thought that was the end of his career. He didn't think he was, when he went back to, everybody was fighting. Central States was not good, and they had purchased St. Louis by that point, and the business was not good. So he figured he would join them. And he didn't think that was coming. He didn't see that around the corner for sure.
Man, the Hogan matches too. He's taking bumps on the floor, like Hogan slamming on the floor, suplex on the floor. And this is
Yes.
no mats are out there. Literally
Right.
just taking the bumps before. They're both bleeding. I mean, the
Yeah.
matches are awesome. Him and Hogan. I love those
Yeah.
matches.
Yeah. Now you're gonna make me go back and watch that. Like I
Yeah.
go in spurts of what Harley like eras I'm at. Like I had one on my hard drive of I was flying home from Kansas City actually, and it was Harley and Steamboat from 1978. And
Nice.
it was just watching this from the Carolinas, and I was just amazed how he's taken an infant, so to speak, an infant Steamboat, and leading him by the hand through this match. And then Steamboat, I don't know exactly. I'd have to see how green he was at that point, but you couldn't tell. I say as an infant because that's earlier in his career, and he's working the heavyweight champion of the world, who is
Yep.
the man when he comes to town. Like back then in 1978, Harley was just on fire as the traveling champion. But the bumps he could take, and so now I'm going to have to go back and watch some Hogan matches.
I even recently typed it into YouTube because I wanted to check out the MSG match again. Then I cast it and I watched it on my TV. But I'm like, oh, but Philly came up, and then and then Saturday's main event, like, so they all came up. Like, now I've got to watch them all. Shit,
Sure. Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I
good
love doing
stuff.
that.
Yeah,
Going
yeah,
down the rabbit hole, if you will.
oh, always, always.
Now with Noah, he was actually booking the U.S. talent over there, or he's just getting you guys bookings.
No, he was booking U.S. talent over there. When Noah formed, Masawa and the office had come over to America, and I was not at this, but I note about it because I had my finger on the pulse of what was going on. Um, they had come to Harley's, and it did kind of like a working tryout session. So they had some guys come in. So obviously Harley had some of his own guys there,